Hey, Shalom. Call Haloim Yahweh, Bahasham, Hamashiach Yahushai, Bahasham Rakakudash, Barakatham. Um, this is like part two or additions to Not a Color Thing, right? I left, we were going into in part one, we went into Numbers, the first chapter, right? To explain that the pedigree for a nation, all right? And it listed it as you know what? I said I was going to get it more than once in that lesson, so I'm gonna just grab it again here. This is Numbers chapter 1 and 16, right? The point was in 18. The point I wanted was it says these were the renowned, like when you read up, right? These were the renowned of the congregation, princes of the tribes of their fathers, heads of thousands in Israel. All right. So each tribe had its own leaders and princes, man. All right. Hey, and through the Spirit, it's going to be the same way in the kingdom of heaven. This is what the 144,000 elect is about. All right. The elect men. But they're going to be 12,000 from each tribe. They're going to be princes, right? But they're going to be heads of thousands, millions. All right. Heads of an innumerable multitude. Okay, through the Spirit. It's beautiful that the Lord put that in there, right? That just now clicked and resonated with me as I read that again for the second time, right? But it says what? Heads of thousands in Israel. So it's speaking of the nation of Israel. Let's get this in the NLT. And it reads, this is Numbers 1 and 16. The point was in 18, but the Spirit just, had me zero in on this. Numbers 1 and 16 in the NLT. These are the chosen leaders of the community, the leaders of their ancestral tribes, the heads of the clans of Israel. The heads of the clans of Israel, right? And so let's read this. Let's read this in the NLT 17 and 18 to remember the points in 18. It says, so Moses and Aaron called together these chosen leaders, right? And they assembled the whole community of Israel on that very day. All the people were registered according to their ancestry by their clans and families. The men of Israel who were 20 years old or older were listed one by one, right? So when you read this back in the KJV, in the King James Version, verse 18, which is the point, it says, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees after their families by the house of their fathers, right? So we went into that word pedigree, all right? And we went into families, okay? And we know that father is the head of is the head of a nation, the head of a clan or tribe, right? The founder, it said. Okay, the founder of a tribe or nation. Abba. So, this part two, we have gone into this, and this is to show where I had left off in Isaiah, the 16th chapter, because I was going into, in the 4th verse, right? Just real quick, as a brief overview, it says, let mine outcast, This is Isaiah 16:4. Let mine outcast dwell with thee, Moab. Be thou a covert to them from the face of the spoiler, for the extortioner is at an end. The spoiler ceaseth, the oppressors are consumed out of the land. Right? So we went into that word outcast, or in the NLT it says refugee, but we went into that word outcast, and it says those that were banished or cast or thrust out, thrust aside, thrown aside. Right? Let's get it again real quick so I don't stumble over it. Mine outcast, nada. Right? Drive away, banish. Right? To thrust away. So, right. So those that were driven away or banished, okay, who are still Israelites. It says, let mine outcast, let my banished dwell with thee, Moab, right? Be thou a covert. We went into that word covert, and it means to be a hiding place or secret place. Be to them from the face of the spoiler. So let's read that with the proper words. It says, let mine banished, right, or those that were thrust out, let my thrust out banished dwell with thee, Moab. Be thou a secret place, a hiding place to them from the face of the spoiler. Right? So that word covert goes in a secret place or hiding place when you go into it. Right? And as I was going into the first part one, you know, I mentioned Ruth, because you had Israelites that sojourned in the land at that time. Now, mind you, when we go into the book of Ruth, it speaks from the perspective of Ruth, right? Who was then what? Given to a man, right? To further that seed line, okay? But, an Israelite man to further the seed line. Now, I mentioned, you know, when people are displaced from a landmass and they go into another land and they go sojourning there, men don't stop being men, right? They go get that box. And if they don't have women of their own nation, they take women from the nation of the people that they're dwelling in, right? And so you have to keep in context that Ruth that story comes from a family that sojourned in the land. Okay? There were many Israelites that were in the land of Moab, in the land of the so-called Chinese. Okay? Why? Because we know this because there was a famine that took place in the land. It says here, let mine outcast, which is plural anyway, right here in the fourth verse of Isaiah, the 16th chapter. But when you go into the history behind Ruth, there was a famine that people were trying to run from. So, that family line, like Naomi's husband, right? I forget his name off the top of my head, but that wasn't the only family. That wasn't the only set of people or family household that went and soldiered in the land of Moab, is what I'm trying to say. Okay? So again, I mentioned the K-pop thing, right? Hey, you can tell the difference between those guys that had that certain swag and your traditional Korean, right? Your traditional Moabite, they different. Just like Bruce Lee was different from the average Chinese guy. I mentioned that in part one, right? Anyway, that's pretty much the recap. Let's do I want to grab this Ezra, right? Ezra chapter 9. And let's start at 1 because it speaks on mixed marriages, right? This is the book of Ezra, chapter 9, verse 1. We're going to start at verse 1. It says, "Now when these things were done, the princes came to me, saying, the people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the people of the lands, doing according to their abominations." Right? Now, I had got that in Psalms 106, right? Which we'll reach back and touch it briefly, just for the sake of this video. Doing according to their abominations, even of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, right? The Egyptians and the Amorites, right? Now, hold it. I gotta double back real quick. I know we did this in the first video, but real quick. Salakia. Psalms 106 and 35. 34. They did not destroy the nations concerning whom the Lord commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. Right? So this is what Ezra was dealing with, man. All right. Reading on, verse 2, it says, "For they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and rulers hath been chief in this trespass." All right, so who are the princes and the rulers? Right, because when you go into the law, what does it say? It says, "Do not give thy sons and thy daughters to particular nations that were set out," right? So, let me see if I right. Deuteronomy 7th chapter. Deuteronomy the 7th chapter and verse 1. And it reads, "When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and hath cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou," right? "And when the Lord Yahweh, thy power, thy God, shall deliver them before thee, thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them. Neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son," right? "Nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord Yahweh be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly." Right? It says what? "But thus shall ye deal with them. Ye shall destroy their altars and break down their images and cut down their groves and burn their graven images with fire. For thou art an holy people unto the Lord Yahweh thy power. The Lord Yahweh thy God, thy power, hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself above all people that are upon the face of the earth." And I had mentioned that too. I paraphrased that that last verse we just read here, Deuteronomy 7 and 6, where I said we're strange unto the heathen, right? We're a peculiar people. And we are. We do things differently, man. Like I said, we hear music different. We taste food different. We move different, right? Shit, we breathe different. We walk different. Everything. Jake got a swag, man. We got salt. We got a way about us, an aura. how they say in the world, that vibe. We got vibes, man, that's different than the other nations, because each nation has a particular spirit that's placed on them from the Heavenly Father, man. And we have a holy one, a separate, special spirit, which is why we dominate in all fields. It don't matter what it is: music, sports, entertainment. Of course, people say those things first because that's what the Israelites are most known for, especially so-called blacks, the so-called Judites, right? But we dominate in inventions, in the sciences, right? In medicine. Okay, this is why. I mean, look at your Ben Carson's, right? Famous uh uh medical doctor. What is he? A heart surgeon. You had a Judite woman invent fiber optic cable and CCTV. The CC is a closed circuit television, which they use for security cameras, which is ironic, right? Because Eve, the best damn detective in the world, you can't get shit past a so-called black woman, right? But then you got the cotton gin, the traffic light, the refrigerator, the light filament, right? The light bulb, um, and the list goes on, man. The iron. Hell, Jack Daniels stole his recipe from Uncle Nearest, a so-called black man, right? But all of these things, man, the West would not be the West without the Israelites. We built these nations up, okay? Salaki, that was my tangent. Back on Ezra 9, I might gotta go back and reread Salaki, where I was at. Reread Deuteronomy 7. And I'm gonna get straight to the point. 7 and 3. It says, neither shalt thou make marriages with them. Thy daughter thou shalt not give unto his son, nor his daughter shalt thou take unto thy son. For they will turn away thy son from following me, that they may serve other gods. So will the anger of the Lord Yahweh be kindled against you and destroy thee suddenly. Right? Now, when you come back over here to Ezra, the book of Ezra in the 9th chapter, this is exactly what it says when we were reading, right? Verse 2, it says, for they have taken of their daughters for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy seed have mingled themselves with the people of those lands. Yea, the hand of the princes and the rulers hath been chief in this trespass. Right? And when you go up, it said who? Even the Levites, man. Even the Levites. So we know I pulled Hosea chapter 7 when it spoke about Ephraim have mixed himself among the nations. He's a cake not turned, right? Well, when we get this, because I quoted it earlier, I had grabbed this. I can't remember if I just pulled it or not. This Psalms 106. And 34, they did not destroy the nations concerning who the Lord commanded them, but were mingled among the heathen and learned their works. Psalms 106 and 35, right? And they served their idols, which were a snare unto them, right? And so that's what we see here in Ezra. That's what we're reading about. Right, now let's go down to verse 11 and 12, just double down, right? On what we read about in verses 1 and 2. It says, which is Ezra 9 and 11 and 12. So it says it twice in a short space, right? Why? Because you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans are stiff-necked people, man, hard-headed. And it reads, which thou hast commanded by thy servants the prophets, saying, the land unto which ye go to possess it is an unclean land with the filthiness of the people of the lands, with their abominations which have filled it from one end to another with their uncleanliness. Now, therefore, give not your daughters unto their sons, neither take their daughters unto your sons, nor seek their peace or their wealth forever, that ye may be strong and eat the good of the land and leave it for an inheritance to your children forever. And we didn't do that, man. And this is why when you go, as I mentioned before, when you go into Hosea, the 7th chapter, it speaks on Ephraim waxing weak, man. Talks about them gray hairs, but he don't know it. Right? I covered that in part 1. So, this was Ezra, man, having to go through here, dealing with this. Right? So, hold on. Yeah, dang. This is the book of Nehemiah, right? The 13th chapter. And so Ezra's and Nehemiah. So let's just get to the point right here where it says mixed marriages forbidden. Oh, let me see if I can find that word marriages in the Hebrew. Hold on. Let's go back real quick. I want that word marriages. It might gotta be back in. I might gotta get it in here. This is Deuteronomy chapter 7. Yeah, chapter 7 and 3. All right. I was in a different Bible app, but let's grab this word marriages real quick in the Hebrew. Right? That word, it's a phrase, marriages, make marriages. And it's Hathan, right? Hathan. And it's the Hebrew word 2859, Hathan, and it reads, to become a son-in-law, make oneself a daughter's husband, right? A wife's father, wife's mother, father-in-law, mother-in-law, to make oneself a daughter's husband. Right? Now, I wanted to get I really didn't get the explanation I wanted, but pretty much I had mentioned before, like when you go into what is that, Nehemiah 13? Salakia. When you go into marriages, right? That's the joining of families. The Elder Yashawamba goes into that all the time. And this is what the purpose of a daughter was. She's an extension of your household. This is why when adultery was committed, right? If the daughter didn't yell out, if she didn't cry out, she would both of those people that committed that atrocity was put to death. All right. But also, likewise, if if she wasn't betrothed to Mary and a man swept her off her feet, we'll say, took her, that man had to be attached to that woman forever. And then what happened? Well, that's a family tie there now. There's a bond there. You had to pay the father and then take care of that woman for the rest, all of her days and all of your days. Right? So that's an extension into the family, because leagues and businesses were set up through families, much like how uh in this society you had these upper level CEOs and all of that shit. The rich marrying among the rich, right? When you think of what's some famous damn white people? It's a movie actress. I can't think of her name. I can't think of her name. Salakia. Well, let's do like this. Even though Diana Ross is technically speckled bird, right? Well, Salakia, she's not a speckled bird. She's a chocolate dipped Edomite. Uh, Diana Ross's daughter. What's her name? Tracy Ellis Ross, right? Well, her father was a so-called famous Jewish guy behind the scenes, like a director. And Diana Ross made it to stardom, right? And she laid with that man, and the offspring, Tracy Ellis Ross, which would be a daughter, fell right into that trade, the movie acting. She got sitcoms and all of this, right? But that's how they do. So like you have, for example, you could have one of the Waltons marry somebody from like the Hilton family or the Gates family. But that's how they'll do, right? Those upper families, they'll make marriages, arrange marriages amongst each other for the purpose of furthering the business and their rulership, their dominion. And matter of fact, if you do enough digging, you see this within the presidency, right? They have things where they go back and show that all of the presidents are related in some form or fashion, one way or the other. Every man that steps foot in that Oval Office they got family ties. Okay. Damn, that's just gonna bug me. I can't think of that girl's name. That white girl's name. She was famous in like the 90s. And both of her parents were famous. Well, you could think about Angelina Jolie. She could be one. Her father was that guy that played in Anaconda. The white dude, the creep that played in Anaconda. John Voight. Right? And look at what they did. Angelina ended up marrying Brad Pitt and they kids. We'll see what happens if the Lord let this thing stay around that long. Anyway, because I'm rambling. It's a lot of shit. Another 30 minutes. This is Nehemiah 13 and 23. And I'm gonna close it out after this. Because I've been bumping my gums an awful lot. And it reads, in those days also saw I Jews that had married wives of Ashdod, of Ammon, and of Moab. And their children spake half in the speech of Ashdod, and could not speak in the Jews' language, but according to the language of each people. Right? And I contended with them, and cursed them, and smote certain of them, and plucked off their hair, and made them swear by Yahweh, saying, Ye shall not give your daughters unto their sons, nor take their daughters unto your sons, or for yourselves. Right? Did not Solomon, king of Israel, sin by these things? Yet among many nations was there no king like him, who was beloved of his God, and God made him king over all Israel. Nevertheless, even him did outlandish women cause to sin. Right? And again, the sin was not in the having concubines, but it was in the marriage. And that's the point I'm trying to get across. Right? Because when you marry, you join house to house. Okay? I mentioned this in verse in part 1, right? Which means you partake when two houses become joined, or two families become joined. You take part of their customs, and they take part of your customs. For instance, in the world, right, you have people that celebrate these abominable ass fucking holidays, like like the murder of the indigenous people, what they call Thanksgiving. I mean Thanksgiving. And like some people, they'll cook a bird. Some people, they'll cook a hog thigh, a ham, or what, pork, but whatever it is, right? A lot of times when if those families start mingling, right, around that time you'll have all of those different customs of that holiday will be all in one house when they celebrate, right? And don't let it be, say, like a so-called Jamaican and a so-called Puerto Rican, or you gonna have all different kind of spices and everything in there. That's just as an example, right? This is why we were to not make marriages with these other nations, man. Let's get this word married here and see if it give me what I want. Yeah, this better. Married, right? Yashab, Yashab, right? Yashab, and it reads, so like this is H3427, Yashab, and it means to dwell, right? To dwell means what? To live, to remain, sit, abide, right? To sit down, to be set, to remain, stay, to dwell, have one's abode. All right. So when you abide or live or dwell or have one's abode, that means you live together. This is why they call it the joining of houses. Okay. To be inhabited. To set, place, to cause, to sit. Right. So this is what if you look down here, it says to marry, give and dwelling to. Okay, joining house to house, man. This is what I wanted. Call hello me how about Shimmy how shot, man. All right. And therein lies the sin. Because if you keep them heathens, those concubines under your foot, ain't no joining. They do what you do. They do what they told. Right? They take on our customs. And that's how it's supposed to be. Okay. So with that, I pray this lesson was edifying. I pray that it finds you well. And until next time, Shalom. Wa Abba Babal.